Today's journey takes us to Sandusky, Ohio, to the Cholera Cemetery. This is the entrance to the cemetery. There's a plaque. It says, "In memory of John Lay Sr., 1849 to 1937. Although upon entering the cemetery, you will see a statue and flags, other than that, it doesn't really seem like a cemetery. As you can see, there are not a whole lot of headstones as you look around. But you do see 3 far off to the right. And you kind of wonder, is this really a cemetery? What happened here? But make no mistakes about it, the story is a horrific and tragic story of death and disease. The plaque reads, "Cholera Cemetery. Of the city's 5,667 people in 1849, 3,500 of them fled, and 400 of those remaining were victims of cholera. Most are buried here, some only in rough boxes in a common grave. The scourge came again in 1850 and 1852, but with less toll." On the back of the plaque, it is in honor of the doctors, and it contains the names of those who were on the front lines fighting cholera in 1849 during the initial outbreak, and who went on to fight the other rounds that hit in 1850 and 1852. They came from near and far to fight this horrific disease that killed hundreds in this small town alone. 357 victims of Sandusky's 1849 cholera epidemic were buried here in a pit in a mass grave. They were killed over a period of only 68 days. At the time, people blamed the disease on habits such as drinking alcohol, not realizing that it was in fact caused by drinking water that had been contaminated by leaking outhouses and cesspits. Additional victims fled the city for the supposedly safer countryside, but they drank the same contaminated water, died, and were buried elsewhere. Subsequent cholera epidemics in 1852 and 1854 took even more lives in Sandusky, but its citizens never figured out why they were dying. The graveyard features a metal Cholera Cemetery entry arch and a pillar honoring the unselfish faithfulness of those who tended to the sick. According to the local lore, the corpses in the Cholera Cemetery were buried by the town drunk, who was immune thanks to his preference for alcohol over water. Due to the large number of deaths from the outbreak, many victims were buried in mass graves in the city's old Harrison Street Cemetery, which is now known as the Cholera Cemetery. This cemetery was closed for a year after the 1849 epidemic, when Sandusky's Oakland Cemetery was opened in Perkins Township. In later years, the old Harrison Street Cemetery was left virtually abandoned and forgotten, with many of its tombstones either being lost or stolen. In 1924, in an effort to recognize both the significance of the epidemic and to honor those whose lives were lost, the old Harrison Street Cemetery was restored. A central feature of this restoration was the installation of the large bronze monument located at the center of the site. John W. Lay, whose family was well known for its operation of local fisheries business and whose father is buried in the cemetery, was a major contributor to its construction. The monument itself was built by the Sandusky Foundry and Machine Company, which continues to operate today only a few blocks from the site as Metaltech International. In the video description box, I will put some links to those that want to learn more about cholera and how it still affects undeveloped countries to this very day. I would also like to remember those who died in this horrific, tragic epidemic, and to never let them be forgotten what happened here. And may their souls eternally rest in peace.